Hello, everybody. It's Monday night, and I'm going to post this right after I make it. Um, there's a lot of good things I could teach, but I'm going to talk a little bit about some issues, okay? I'm going to ask everybody that sees this in a little while when I post it on a lot of my sites, the video itself. I'm going to ask you to go to my Facebook page. Now, I have a lot of friends. Elizabeth Rose Williams is the name of the girl, if I forget it. And Michael Sherwin is the name of the guy, the FBI or Justice Department guy that was behind the arrest of a lot of these people. But that's the name, Elizabeth Rose Williams and Michael Sherwin. Now, I'm going to do a little, the other day I made the video, I talked about movements by Russia and China where it looks as if we're gonna have a conflict with maybe both Russia and China. And it just so happened on that video there was some developments right after I made that video, like in the next day. And basically President Biden was at the White House over the weekend, and the way the news corps, the press corps could tell that something's going on, a security thing, is there's I believe a Marine that stands outside. And so the president was there on Saturday, Sunday, today's Monday, and what was going on was discussions about the movements of Russia and China, which I just had mentioned, I guess the day before. Okay, so what is, I'm going to try to tie these things in. The thing that makes me mad about the girl's name that I mentioned in the beginning of the video is she's one of the girls that was protesting on January 6th at Washington, D.C. Now, if you look at her pictures, you look at her, and she made like the picture or the video, whatever, on Facebook, we're storming the Capitol. Now, you understand as an adult that sweet girl, her boyfriend was involved, he was doing security on January 6th and all, but you understand that girl in no way was, her language might have been wrong, but she was in no way over mounting an insurrection against the United States of America to overthrow the country. And this Michael Sherwin character, when he gave an interview with Scott Pelley, which I seen him speak, and he's already been called to the carpet, Mr. Pelley asked him, what, and the way you rated her, 4 a.m., wow, the poor girl, well, he said, Mr. Sherwin said, we wanted to show them shock and awe. You are going to see it in the country. This country is going to see shock and awe, not by me, but by world events. This country is going to reap it. And if I covered the whole history that's led up to a lot of these conflicts, why we are moving troops, maybe you're not aware of it, Biden has moved a bunch of troops into, we're packing more troops in Syria, which is conflict with Russia, basically. So we're getting the troops in Syria, we got the ships, and without doing a whole geopolitical thing on this, whether Biden is, there were people for many years that we have different terms for them, but there are people that are military people and advisors and so forth, and many of them want a war with Russia and China. And the viewpoint, well, with Russia primarily, but you can hear many of them, many would be considered conservatives. But they say for various reasons it would be beneficial for us to do certain things. And now these people have influence, whether it's on Trump or whether it's on Biden or Obama or whoever. And sometimes there are different terms we use for these people, but these are people that they have viewpoints, and then they give advice to presidents. And then there's some question whether, these people are like, right away, some of these movements is like there's going to be a conflict. So instead of a backing down of it, it seems like we're pushing that. Now, I do believe that this time around, both Russia and China basically have their views that they have their territories where they are on the map, and they feel for their reasons, whether China's saying we do not recognize the independence of Taiwan, and China has had the position, since it's been communist, if you will, Red China, we say, their position was Taiwan was in a state of rebellion, and Taiwan's position is they're like independent country. Okay, Russia's idea with Ukraine, for various reasons, but Russia believes that certain things went wrong with Ukraine and with the Russian people that are actually still in Ukraine on the border there. And so they feel for their also territorial integrity that they have to do certain things. And when the U.S., the man in charge, what is his name, Blinken, the Secretary, is he Secretary of Defense, Blinken? Secretary of State of Defense. But Mr. Blinken basically was giving his honest view that, well, it's been our position that we are basically going to defend Ukraine, or we're going to defend Taiwan and so forth. And as I listen to these things, I understand people have these viewpoints. I believe it's going to hit the fan. Because what these countries see, when we recently, Mr. Blinken and our country recently sat down with China in talks, we were bringing up human rights abuses in China with the Uyghurs. Okay, so how China is treating some people bad in China. And China dressed us down, basically. It was meetings, I think, that we met in Alaska, but it was meetings that the U.S. had with China. And China said, who are you to talk about human rights abuses or issues? You have no right to speak to us in that manner at all. China said to us, you have no moral authority to even mention it. So their viewpoint is, we're fed up. We're fed up with the hypocrisy of the Western world, particularly the U.S. And there's other movements going on that has to do with Japan as well, and China, disagreements of the Pacific. And what they see, the true view of this sweet girl and others like her is people in this government are taking a position that they're going to bring charges of insurrection and overthrow of the United States government against these people. And if you as an adult, that's why that guy gets me mad. That what he gave that wisecrack, the guy I mentioned in the beginning. He said, we wanted to show him shock and awe. And that girl, if you look at her, with her Facebook page or anything, nobody in their right mind would think she really believed they were going to mount an insurrection and overthrow. They were kidding around. They went there to protest, and her boyfriend was involved with the groups that the government says were going to go after them. But when you expand that, and you treat that girl that way, and then the president himself and his son, with all the other stuff going on, and you give that preferential treatment, and the world sees that. The world sees that the U.S. says, if we feel people are threatening our territorial integrity, meaning if we think people are against us as a government, we will go after them. But yet we tell Russia and China, if you have people in your countries that you feel are a threat to your territorial integrity, we will not stand for it if you act against them. Are you understanding this picture? I'm hoping, whether you're liberal, conservative, I hope you understand this picture. We at this time, in this country, are overcharging people like this sweet girl. And we're doing it on the basis of We will not stand for anyone challenging whether it's the integrity of an election or the integrity of the country itself. And we will go after you. And we'll overdo it, which they're doing. But yet we're telling these other countries, there's people in your countries, Russia, China, and others, and they have problems with your governments, truly. And we want you to let them do whatever they want, don't you? So they're fed up. And so all of this fits together. It's not just one particular issue. It's seeing the political bias of whether it's that Sherwin guy or whatever with the laughing face, like we shock and awe that girl, Christian from Texas. The view is Texas is behind the times and then all that other stuff, north and south. But you look at the judges were telling our government, you got to let some of these people out. You're holding them in solitary confinement. You're holding them without bail. And they're doing it on a political basis. And right now we're going to have the results of the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, the officer who's being charged with murder and so forth. It's not resolved yet as far as I know today. And I believe, Mr. Biden, whatever your view is, if you spend $2 trillion and then you're going to spend another $2 trillion, look, you can't do all that without having a real effect, economic effect. And people get tricked by that because they might say, well, the stocks ain't doing that bad. Last I know, they're not doing that bad. Why, though? If putting that much money, $2 trillion, you go and do another $2 trillion. The deficit, by the way, just came in economically, and it's not good at all, the trade deficit itself. But stocks do good, even if it looks like that's gonna cause a crash to the economy down the road, inflation. But how could stocks do good? Well, when you pump all that money into the economy, much of it does wind up in the market, believe it or not. You know, people that are retired like me, and I got our check, me and my wife got our check. Well, you know, I don't invest in the market myself, but I'm just saying a lot of retirement people, a lot of the money that you're pumping into the economy really in a way that's kind of irresponsible. It winds up in the market. But overall, the inflation and everything else is not good at all. And I just would foresee the biggest event, I would say, that's going to come on the horizon. And I just spoke about it, and then there were more signs. There's going to be a conflict. And it's going to be Russia, China, things that are going on, Israel, Iran, nuclear site, blacked out, the centrifuges were hit. We did that once. The U.S. did that once. It was called the Stuxnet virus, where it was a particular way we destroyed the Iran centrifuges. This is years ago. The U.S. was behind it. But this time, it looks like Israel did it the other day, meaning they believe that the U.S. is going to get back into an agreement with Iran. And so Israel stated publicly, we're going to move on it if you don't do it. There's a lot of unrest, but I think this time around, both China and Russia, many years when we patrol their areas in what's called the open seas, but it's international waters, but many times China challenged us and so forth. But I think this time they're going to do what they believe they need to do. And I believe, and the reason the president, like I said, was at D.C. on Saturday and Sunday, which he normally is not there on Saturday and Sunday, is because this is rising now to a national level. And this ain't a prophecy, but I would say this. I think we're going to have a war. I think before Mr. Biden is out of office, if he does his, 3.5 more year term, unless he gets sick or something happens, I believe we're going to have a war. Because there's a lot that comes back on our country that we reap. People that are concerned about the abuse of FBI and so forth, it used to be in our country that what we refer to as the liberal media would tamper down on the abuses of FBI and Justice Department and so forth. That used to be but because of the way politics worked, when you tried to critique them in these last 5 years, it was almost like the liberal media lost their voice for justice completely, and they kept backing up. But there were abuses that took place with the Justice Department, FBI in the last 5-6 years. And because of political reasons, the liberal media did not do what they normally historically would do, which would be critique any abuses against citizens. And now it just looks like they maybe are going to start, but they're gone. They lost their voice in this country a long time ago. People just don't trust them. So I believe that there's going to be a reaping in the country, and I believe we're going to have a war. I think this time around that Russia and China are going to do what they think they need to do. The Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, but she also gave a warning to Russia that Europe sees, oh, there's stuff going on, and that happened like last week. So it looks like stuff's going to hit the fan. Let me just say it that way. And I'm very upset about the girl I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the name Elizabeth, because if you look at the girl's picture on her, and she was Christian girl, they're holding that girl, they're shocking and awing that girl, and there's no legitimate things. The judges, and so the 50-year-old guy or whoever he was, that was so proud that we shock and awe that Texas Christian girl. It's a disgrace to me. It's a disgrace when I see these guys getting away with a lot of stuff. Whether it's on a local thing, or I've spoken about issues for a long time. And to see how many, I don't know how many times I've had cops or FBI have guns out in my face. Not once have I had a gun out in their face. And I can count multiple times over 20 years, 30 years, where various instances, whether it was, a park or whatever it was, I can count multiple times in long occasions where they had guns out. I remember one time just driving back from work, and I had my uniform on, and I had an old Datsun 280ZX. I could give you, and I was coming from Kingsville back to where I live here, and just driving on Weber, one of the roads, and there was a cop in the right, or in the left lane, going slow. The speed limit was 40, so maybe he's doing 20, and all the cars are backing up, and he's in the left lane, and nobody wants to pass him. So they were playing games. And I'm in my Datsun 280ZX coming back from work. So I'm in the right lane doing 35, speed limit was 45, 50. But I passed him up in the right. Both lights on, pulling over. How many of those incidents end in murders? Because you all are out there just rogue like that. And how do you know he was rogue, John? Because I stopped, of course. I was coming home from work. So he gets out of the cop car. This is 15 years ago. He's walking up to me, no right to stop me, pull me over, or anything. Before he even gets to my window, he sees my badge and uniform, thinking I might be another cop from another area. He don't even stop, just turns around and leaves. Meaning they know that they're breaking the law, constantly doing that. And I can give you so many of those cases. At Robstown, coming back, was doing Bible studies with the homeless guy, getting pulled over on these speed traffic. The same thing. And as soon as he walks up, he wants to see my license, and I open my wallet, and I have my retirement fireman's badge. As soon as he sees the badge, almost runs. The guy saw it, gets back in his car, said, hey, don't you want to see my license? You said you're going to leave. So now how many times they thought I was another cop because they saw the badge in my wallet, which is a legitimate fireman's badge. Now how many times have they done that? How many times have those illegal stops and arrests led to people getting killed? Hundreds of thousands. Not thousands, hundreds of thousands. So whether it's this FBI guy, the CIA guy, and I could see between the lines. You still got that girl, you're holding her. You're teaching her a lesson. You're teaching her family a lesson. You're going to charge them, and then you tell them Russia, we will not stand for human rights. It's going to hit the fan. I would say, April? We're going to have a war break out. And the difference is going to be this time, most wars that we've experienced in our history, recent history, you've not had things really affect us. So we would live in the United States, entertainment mentality, everything else. But it's like, oh, there's a war, but we don't know much about it. The media glorified the Iraq War, which was an unjust war. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal, I'm just speaking what I know to be the best truth I can. It was an unjust war. It was fabricated. Mr. Bush is no hero. He's got George Bush, the second. He's got a lot of innocent blood on his hands. Those that are not familiar with that resulted, Mr. Saddam Hussein, as bad as he was, he happened to be one of the friends of the Christian church in Iraq. Tariq Aziz was his name. His right-hand man was a Christian, which is very strange for that part of the world to have it. So Saddam Hussein was considered a friend of the church in Iraq. I don't know if you knew that. And so when we did that war, the church in Iraq came under tremendous persecution and was displaced. It was a great disservice to the Christians in Iraq. There are many people in Syria that want Assad, who is still in charge of Syria. There are many Christians in Syria that still want Assad to stay in, though the United States has been trying to get rid of Assad. And Russia backs Assad, and it's not for a little bit. He wants stability in that region. And if Syria collapsed, you'd have the same debacle that you had in Libya and all these other places. You know, Muammar Gaddafi, when we basically backed his murder, Mr. Obama backed Muammar Gaddafi's murder. Libya is Africa, North Africa, okay? Tripoli is right there. And so it's interesting because Gaddafi willingly gave up nuclear, seeking nuclear weapons. He did it willingly. And then when Mr. Obama came in, he did it before Obama came in, we decided, for various reasons, I went through the whole history of Libya, we were going to back his ouster, which led to his murder. And that gave a message. If you get rid of your nukes, the U.S. might just come back. And it was a disaster what happened in Libya. It's unstable. And so the President Putin, he doesn't want Syria to fall, if you will, to the terrorists. And if you get rid of Assad, and many Christians want Assad. The Christians in Syria want Assad to stay. Not all of them, but many. The same situation like with Saddam Hussein. If you depose these particular strong men, then what happens is the other groups that take over are much worse against the Christian church in those regions. And so we're making all these judgments involving ourselves. And I would just honestly say to you this. Regardless of your view, we're going to have a war. This country is going to see a war. Because Mr. Blinken put up the statement this past weekend on one of the Sunday shows. Well, we're going to defend Ukraine. We're going to defend Taiwan. And China and Russia, they're not going to listen anymore. And we don't have the capability for both China and Russia at the same time to win that war. Okay? You say, well, we're the strongest. We are. But if we have a war with China and Russia at the same time, we do not win that war. And people say, but Russia's got nukes, but they don't have a powerful military. Of course that's true. But if people don't think, if my military is not as powerful as your military, but I have more bombs than you, if you push me in a corner, like there was this saying, you're gonna use what you do have. So the fact that our military is much more powerful, we recognize that, man-wise, troop-wise, but if all they have is a powerful nuke, it doesn't mean they're not going to use it. It means if it comes down to it, and I just see that we're to the full cup at this stage. Okay? and I left that Russian military, and you're going to see it. And I know that this media in this country would like to get your minds off of that, because when we had the Iraq War, it was like entertainment, and the media was helped that unjust war. And we like to say everything goes on as long as it doesn't touch our shores. But this time it's going to touch our shores. I mean, this time you're going to see it here as well. Okay? That's my view. And it might be coming quicker than I had thought the other day. It might, because there's action movements right now. At this moment that I'm speaking, there's military movements taking place. The U.S., Russia, and China. There are particular movements taking place that could very well lead to this war. So I'll just end with that. I believe that we should, that girl, please go to my Facebook page, everybody. It's linked to all my sites, and I'll put this up as a video on the others. And look at those cases. And look at that man's name that I gave at the beginning. He was so smug, speaking about that girl from Texas, that we wanted to show her shock and awe. Who the hell do you think you are? I have seen you pull shock and awe to the point of where I live, illegal murders and everything else. People in authority, killings and everything else. But you're doing it to that girl. That's why that guy, I have no respect for them at all. And they did show up. FBI with guns out. We have a right to defend ourselves. And I have a legal firearm. But you have pulled it out on me more than one time. More than one time you've had guns on me. More than one time. Okay, we're going to reap it. The country's going to reap it. The country is going to reap a whirlwind. Okay, I hope we're prepared. God bless everybody.